She burst into a biker bar, 8 months pregnant, shaking, eyes wide with terror. Every man in leather turned to stare. "I need help," she gasped. "My husband's coming. He'll kill me." The room fell silent. One biker stood, his voice low but steady. "You came to the right place." Outside, engines rumbled like thunder rolling closer. She didn't know it yet, but the moment she stepped through that door, she hadn't found safety. She'd started a war. What the Hells Angels did next would shock everyone. This is Heart Tales. Hit subscribe because this story proves sometimes the outlaws are the only ones brave enough to protect the innocent. Let's check in. 1 for first-time viewer, 2 if you've seen a few, 3 if you never miss. The sun beat down on the cracked asphalt, bleaching everything in its path. The road, the dust, even the battered Hells Angels Arizona chapter sign hanging crooked above the bar door. The engines outside rumbled low, steady like sleeping beasts. Men in leather vests leaned against their bikes, chrome gleaming under the midday glare. Then the sound came. Small, desperate footsteps across gravel. Every head turned. A woman stood at the edge of the lot, her sundress clinging to her knees, her hair tangled with wind and sweat. She looked out of place in the blinding desert light. Too soft, too fragile for this world of steel and scars. Her hands trembled as she held her swollen belly, 8 months along, one step away from collapsing. Anna Reeves took a breath that burned her throat and walked forward. The bikers watched in silence, curious, cautious, some smirking at the sight of a pregnant stranger approaching their stronghold. One of them, Reaper Kane, the man with the scar running from his jaw to his ear, pushed off his Harley and muttered, "You lost, sweetheart." Anna didn't answer. She walked straight past him up the steps and into the bar. The door creaked open, sunlight spilling into the dim interior. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and motor oil. Conversations died mid-sentence. A jukebox hummed low. A half-finished beer sat sweating on the counter. At the far end, a man sat alone, back turned, broad shoulders filling the space between light and shadow. His leather cut bore the same insignia as the others. A skull with wings, a halo of flame, but beneath it, one name stitched in red thread. President Anna froze, her heart hammered. She could barely get the words out. I need your help." The man didn't turn immediately. He took a long sip of his drink before setting the glass down. When he finally looked over his shoulder, the sunlight caught the edge of his jaw, square, unshaven, a thin scar near his temple. His eyes were calm, but carried the weight of men who'd seen too much. "You got a name?" he asked. "Anna Reeves," she said, her voice shaking. "Please, I wouldn't be here if I had anywhere else to go." Now, the others were gathering near the door, their boots thudding on wood. Reaper frowned, arms crossed. "You sure you're in the right place, lady? We don't do charity." Anna's lips parted, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "I'm running from my husband. He's going to kill me." That cut through the noise like a blade. The room went still. Jace Maddox stood up slowly, the bar creaking under his weight. "Why is that?" "Because I told the truth," she said, clutching her belly tighter. "I found something I shouldn't have, money, names. He said if I ever spoke, he'd—" She stopped, choking on the memory. "He's coming for me. He doesn't care that I'm pregnant." Jay's expression didn't change, but the room shifted. Every man there had seen monsters like that before. He wiped his hands on a rag and nodded toward a chair. "Sit down before you fall." Anna hesitated. "Please, I don't want trouble." He cut her off. "Trouble already found you, darling." "Sit." She sat. The wooden chair felt like stone beneath her. Someone brought her a glass of water. Her hands shook as she drank. Reaper leaned against the counter, skeptical. "You expect us to go up against some rich psycho because he hurt your feelings?" Anna's eyes flashed. "He broke my ribs." She lifted the side of her dress, revealing bruises that had turned deep purple, fading to green. "He locked me in our house for weeks. He said the baby would remind me who owned me." The words hit the room like a blow. Even Reaper's smirk faded. Jace spoke quietly. "What's his name?" "Richard Hale," she whispered. He's powerful. Owns half of Dry Valley. The police work for him." Jay's jaw tightened. The name was familiar. He'd heard it before. A developer with dirty money, rumored to run private security like a militia. A man who thought he owned everyone he touched. He leaned closer, his voice steady, low. "You know what happens when you walk through that door asking for help from us?" Anna met his gaze, terrified but defiant. "Yes, you don't walk back out the same," he said, her voice cracked. "I already lost everything that made me me. What's left to lose?" The bar fell silent. The only sound was the ceiling fan spinning slow above them. Finally, Jace nodded once. "Reaper, get Lena. We're not turning her out." Reaper stared, surprised. "You serious?" I said. "Get her." Jace repeated. Moments later, Lena Carter appeared from the back, wiping grease off her hands. When she saw Anna, her face softened instantly. "You're safe here," she said, guiding her toward the back door. Anna's knees buckled. She almost cried, but no tears came, just exhaustion. As Lena led her away, Jace turned back to his men. "No one breathes a word about this outside these walls. Not to the cops, not to anyone. If Hale finds her, he finds us." Reaper frowned. "And if he does," Jace's eyes went cold. "Then we remind him what family means." Outside, the desert wind picked up, rattling the flag above the door. The engines growled like thunder, ready to break. Inside, the angels went back to work, silent, watchful, waiting. In the back room, Anna sat on a cot as Lena placed a cool cloth on her forehead. "You're safe," Lena whispered again. But even as the words left her lips, Anna's eyes drifted toward the window. Far out on the highway, beyond the sun glare, a black SUV slowed, then turned around. Her pulse spiked. She didn't know it yet, but the moment she stepped into that bar, she hadn't just found shelter. She'd started a war. The yard behind the Angels bar smelled of gasoline and sunlight. Rows of Harley engines lined up like soldiers, half taken apart, gleaming in the heat. Somewhere in the corner, an old radio hummed faint country tunes under the grinding of metal tools. It should have been chaos, but somehow it felt like order. The kind built on quiet discipline and unspoken rules. Anna Reeves sat on a worn-out bench near the workshop, her hands resting over her stomach. Her body still trembled from exhaustion, but her mind couldn't stop running. She kept expecting to hear the crunch of tires, the slam of a car door, his voice. Lena Carter appeared with 2 bottles of water and a calm that seemed impossible. "Here," she said, pressing one into Anna's hands. "You need to drink. Heat's not your friend." Anna nodded, sipping slowly. Her lips cracked when she spoke. "How long can I stay here?" Lena looked out toward the desert, squinting against the glare. "As long as you need to. Jace doesn't turn away someone who comes in bleeding." "But he doesn't even know me," Anna said softly. Lena smiled faintly. "He doesn't have to. Around here, we don't ask who you were. We care who you're running from." The words should have comforted her, but they didn't. Because somewhere out there, Richard Hale was watching. And Richard never stopped until he had what was his. Inside the garage, Reaper Kane tightened the bolts on his bike while talking low to Jace. You sure about this? HELLS got half the sheriff's department on his payroll. If he finds out we're hiding his wife, it's open war. Jace didn't look up. He's already made it war. She just walked through our door with the evidence. Reaper frowned. Evidence? She's carrying it? Jay said, glancing toward the open yard. His gaze lingered on Anna's swollen belly. And that's reason enough. Reaper's jaw clenched. You really going to risk the whole chapter over this? Jace met his eyes, calm but final. We don't choose what's worth protecting, brother. Sometimes it walks in and makes the choice for us. The sound of engines outside cut through the air. 2 riders returned from a supply run, dust kicking up behind them. Lena tensed and peered toward the gate. They're ours, she murmured, relaxing. But Anna didn't. Every vibration, every roar of a motor made her flinch. Her body remembered what fear couldn't let her forget. The night she escaped. The slammed doors. The glass breaking. Richard's voice cutting through her screams. You'll never make it off my land. She pressed her palms to her stomach, grounding herself in the here and now. Later that afternoon, Lena led her inside to a small storage room turned makeshift living space. The light filtered through the blinds, golden and sharp. This is temporarily, Lena said. You'll be safe here. No one comes in or out without Jace knowing. Anna looked around. A cot, a dresser, a cracked mirror, and a small window that faced the endless sky. It's more than I had, she said quietly. Lena hesitated, then sat beside her. I know what it's like, she said. 10 years ago I ran too, different man, same kind of monster. The angels found me before he did. Anna turned toward her, surprised. Lena's eyes softened. Don't look so shocked. This place, it's full of ghosts who decided not to die. Before Anna could reply, the door creaked open. Jace stood in the frame, sunlight behind him, his presence filling the small room. He nodded to Lena. Give us a minute. When she left, the silence settled heavy. Anna shifted uneasy. You shouldn't get involved. He'll come for me, for anyone who helps me. Jace leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. He already is. That black SUV outside this morning, one of his. We saw it circling, her breath hitched. You saw them? Yeah, he said simply, and they saw us. Anna's pulse raced. You don't understand. Richard doesn't stop. He doesn't care about laws. Or Jace interrupted her, calm but firm. You think we care about laws? That silenced her. He stepped closer, his voice dropping lower. You came here because you knew the cops wouldn't help you. The law protects power. We protect people. Anna searched his face. There was no pity there, just certainty. Why? She asked. He shrugged. Because someone once did it for me. The answer was so simple it made her throat tighten. Outside, a rumble of thunder rolled across the sky. Not from the weather, but from engines. Reaper entered the main hall, calling out, Boss, you better see this. Jace motioned for Anna to stay put and followed him outside. A white police SUV had pulled up near the front gate. 2 uniformed men stepped out, their expressions sharp, rehearsed. The taller one flashed a badge. Sheriff's Department, we got a report about a missing woman. Might be inside. Reaper smirked, stepping forward. We don't lose people here. They tend to stick around. The officer's smile didn't reach his eyes. We can handle this easy, son. Just let us take a look around. Jace came forward slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. You got a warrant? The man hesitated. Don't need one for a welfare check. Then check somewhere else, Jace said evenly. The cop's partner, younger and jumpier, muttered. You really want to play this game? Jace's stare hardened. We don't play games with men who take orders from Richard Hale. The younger man froze. The taller one's expression flickered just long enough to confirm what Jace already knew. "Get off my property," Jace said. For a second, a world held its breath. Then the taller officer smirked, tapping his badge. "You think you're untouchable? You're not." Reaper took a step forward, his voice cold. "Neither are you." The officers exchanged looks, then backed off, climbing into their SUV. Dust followed them as they sped away. When the sound faded, Jace exhaled slowly. "They're scouting," he said. "Next time they won't knock." Inside, Anna stood by the window, watching. She knew it now. She hadn't brought safety here. She'd brought the storm. But what she couldn't know was that every man in that yard had already chosen to stand in it with her. The day after the police visit, the air felt heavier. The morning sun lit the yard in gold, but beneath the brightness everyone moved like they were waiting for something to break. Jace stood near the gate, sunglasses hiding the sharp focus in his eyes, a cigarette burning slow between his fingers. The quiet hum of Harley engines filled the air, idle and ready. Inside, Anna tried to convince herself that calm meant safety. She folded blankets, helped Lena prepare breakfast, anything to keep her hands from shaking. But she couldn't ignore the glances, the subtle way men checked every window, the quick looks toward the road. These weren't the kind of people who jumped at shadows, yet every sound outside made them tense. Lena caught her staring. "They're not nervous," she said. "They're ready." "Ready for what?" Anna asked. Lena paused. "Whatever comes next." Anna looked down at her hands at the faint bruises that still hadn't faded. "He won't stop," she whispered. "He'll buy whoever he has to." "He already has," Lena said quietly. "That badge yesterday, that was Hale's money talking." Anna turned toward her, horrified. "Then the law doesn't care about women like us," Lena finished for her. "That's why you're here. We make our own justice." The words landed deep. Anna wanted to believe it, but the habit of fear was hard to break. For years, she'd lived under Richard's rules. Silence, obedience, and control disguised as love. Even now, the thought of his voice made her flinch. She stared out the small window. Across the street, a black SUV idled, same as the one she'd seen before. Not close enough to act, but close enough to remind her she was never out of reach. Lena followed her gaze and swore under her breath. "They're watching again." Chase was already moving. He stepped out from the garage, tossing his cigarette to the ground. "Reaper," he called. "Get 2 of the boys on that car." Reaper grabbed his helmet, snapping the strap tight. "Quiet or loud?" "Loud enough they remember the sound," Jay said. The Harleys roared to life, engines vibrating through the ground like thunder underfoot. 2 riders peeled out, heading straight toward the SUV. The men inside scrambled, threw the car into reverse, and sped off in a cloud of dust. Lena grinned faintly. They'll think twice before coming back. But Anna wasn't smiling. They'll just send someone else. Jace turned to her, his tone calm but unyielding. "Then we'll send them back the same way." He walked closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You're not running anymore, Anna. Not from him, not from anyone. You came here for help. You got it. But that means you trust us now." She hesitated. "I don't know how." "Then learn," he said. He turned and walked toward his bike, the sound of his boots echoing on the concrete. That afternoon, as the sun climbed higher, a dust cloud appeared on the highway. Another vehicle was approaching, not black this time, but white with the sheriff's logo stenkled across the door. Lena's face darkened. You've got to be kidding me. The vehicle pulled up outside the gate. This time, there was only one officer, the same tall one from before. He stepped out slow, one hand resting on his holster. "Afternoon," he said. "Got some complaints about noise. Thought I'd come check in." Jace stepped forward, leaning on the fence. "You mean the noise that scared off your friends yesterday?" The officer smirked. "You think you can threaten a law enforcement and not expect fallout?" "Law enforcement?" Jace's voice was soft but sharp. "Don't pretend you wear that badge for anything but money." The officer's smirk faltered, but only slightly. "You're making a mistake, Maddox, the kind that buries people." Jace's tone didn't change. "The last man who tried to bury me forgot that I don't die easy." The silence that followed was thick. Finally, the officer turned and walked back toward his car. Before getting in, he looked over his shoulder. "You can't protect her forever. Men like Hale always win." Jace didn't blink. Not this time. When the SUV disappeared down the road, the tension slowly bled out of the yard. Reaper muttered. "They're testing how far they can push." "Let them," Jace said. "The line's already drawn." Later that day, Anna sat outside the garage. The sun dipping low behind the hills. The roar of engines had faded, leaving only the chirp of crickets and the creak of metal in the cooling air. Jace came out, wiping grease from his hands. "You shouldn't sit alone out here," he said. She looked up at him, weary but calm. "I've been alone for a long time." He leaned against a post, lighting another cigarette. "That ends here. I'm not like you," she said. "You fight back. I just run." Jace exhaled smoke, watching it twist in the light. "You're still breathing, aren't you? Running kept you alive long enough to find us. That's strength, not weakness." Anna stared at him, the words sinking in deeper than she wanted them to. He continued, quieter now. "You ask what the angels stand for. We don't fight for money or for pride. We fight for people who've been told they don't get to fight." She looked at him. Really looked at the scars, the calm, the quiet steel in his voice. "Why help me?" Chase's eyes softened. "Because once someone helped me when I didn't deserve it." For a moment neither spoke. The golden light wrapped around them, the air heavy with dust and truth from the far distance. An engine revved, faint but distinct. Jace turned toward the sound, his body instantly alert. He stared down the highway, eyes narrowing. Anna followed his gaze. Far off, a glint of sun on metal. Another car, the same kind of black SUV. Her heart dropped. "He's here." Jace didn't look away. "Then we'll be ready." As the first engine growl reached the yard, the men of the Angels stepped into position. The chrome of their bikes catching the dying sunlight. The calm before the storm didn't feel like fear anymore. It felt like purpose. The afternoon heat burned the horizon white. By the time the first trail of smoke appeared, no one noticed it right away. The yard buzzed with the usual rhythm. Wrenches clanging, engines tuning, men laughing under the blinding Arizona sun. It almost looked like peace. But peace never lasted long in this place. Anna sat inside Lena's small kitchen, helping her peel potatoes for dinner. Her hands were slower now, steadier than before. For a few fleeting hours, she allowed herself to feel safe. Safe enough to breathe. Safe enough to smile at the smell of grease and garlic mixing in the air. Vina wiped her hands on a rag. "You see that look in your eyes?" she said softly. "That's what it looks like when someone starts believing again." Anna smiled, filed faintly. "Believing in what?" "Anna?" Shrina shrugged. In Tomorrow Outside, Jace wiped sweat from his brow and looked toward the west. Something was wrong. The air shimmered differently. Reaper followed his gaze, narrowing his eyes. "You smell that gasoline?" Jace muttered. A second later, a roar split the silence. The warehouse door blew open in a burst of heat and flame. "Fire!" someone shouted. The explosion shook the ground. Flames climbed the walls, licking through metal and wood. Black smoke curling into the blue sky. Chaos erupted. Men running for hoses, others dragging bikes away from the blaze. Inside the kitchen, the windows rattled. The shockwave knocked a glass from the counter, shattering it at Anna's feet. She froze. Lena grabbed her arm. "Move. Get out now." They stumbled outside into a haze of smoke. The air tasted like burning oil and dust. Bikers shouted, pulling fuel drums away from the flames. Jay's voice cut through it all. "Reaper, the back line. Get those tanks out before they blow." Lena turned toward Anna, coughing. "Stay with me. Don't." She didn't finish. A second blast came from the far side of the yard, throwing debris into the air. Anna screamed, ducking instinctively as splinters rained down. Through the smoke, she saw movement. Figures at the fence line, dark silhouettes. Men, not bikers. Reaper saw them, too. "We've got company." Gunfire cracked through the air. Sparks burst off the metal walls. Jace spun toward Anna, shouting over the chaos, "Get inside now!" But she didn't move. The shock had frozen her in place, her breath shallow, her body trembling. Jace ran toward her, grabbed her by the shoulders. "Anna, look at me." Her eyes met his. The world shrank to the sound of his voice. "You run when I say run. Got it?" She nodded, tears streaking through the soot on her cheeks. Lena grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the side door. Jace turned back toward the flames. The attackers were already retreating. Ghosts slipping into the desert dust. They hadn't come to fight, they'd come to send a message. Minutes felt like hours before the last of the fire died out. The yard was a wreck. Scorched bikes, melted tools, black smoke curling into the pale afternoon sky. But no one was dead that mattered. Anna stood at the edge of the debris, hands on her stomach, watching men she barely knew rebuild their world from ashes. Reaper tossed his helmet aside, cursing. This was hail. "Has to be. He wants us scared." Jace kicked through a pile of charred boards. His voice was low, steady, dangerous. Then he doesn't understand who he's dealing with. Lena walked over to Anna, resting a hand on her shoulder. "You all right, sweetheart?" Anna nodded, though her voice shook. "He found me. He'll keep coming." Jace turned, hearing her. "He won't get the chance." She looked at him, the reflection of fire still alive in his eyes. "You can't stop him. You don't know him." "I don't need to know him," Jace said. "I know his kind." The other men gathered around. The yard was quiet now except for the crackle of dying embers. Jace took off his cut, tossed it over a chair, and faced them. "He sent a message," he said. "Here's ours. Nobody touches a woman carrying life. Not in my town." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Reaper nodded once. "What do you want us to do?" "Lock it down," Jay said. "No one in or out. Patrols every hour and send a truck for supplies. We rebuild tonight." Lena's eyes filled with something between pride and fear. "You're putting all of them in his crosshairs." Jace looked at her. They already chose to stand there. As the sun sank lower, the bikers worked in silence, dragging out the burned wreckage, washing soot from the concrete. The orange glow of sunset fell across their backs, the smoke drifting away like ghosts finally leaving. Anna sat nearby, wrapped in a blanket someone had thrown over her shoulders. Her throat ached from the smoke, but she couldn't stop watching Jace move through the wreckage, calm, relentless, unshaken. When he finally came to her, his face was dry with ash, his voice rough but steady. You all right?" She nodded, though her eyes were wet. "You could have died out there." "So could you," he said. Anna shook her head. "You don't even know me. Why risk everything for someone like me?" Jace crouched down so they were eye level. His expression softened, but his tone stayed firm. "Because this," he gestured to the yard, to the men working under a darkening sky. "This is what we do. We protect what the world breaks." She swallowed hard. "And what if the world breaks you?" He gave a faint smile. "Then we rebuild stronger." For the first time since she arrived, Anna believed him. As night crept in, the engine started again. The roar rolled through the valley like thunder, reclaiming the silence. Jace looked out over the horizon, jaw tight, the glow of flame still reflected in his eyes. Under his breath, he said it more to himself than to anyone else. "You're under my wing now. You and that child, no one touches you again." Behind him, the angel's flag waved against the darkening sky, torn, singed, but still standing. By noon the next day, the sun hung high and merciless, glaring off the blacktop like a mirror. The smell of burned wood still clung to the yard, but the angels were already rebuilding, welding frames, hammering metal, tightening chains. No one spoke about the fire. They didn't need to. The silence itself was a vow. Anna sat near the edge of the lot, wiping her face with a rag as the dry wind tugged at her hair. The faint cries of cicadas filled the air. Everything seemed too calm, too still. It was the kind of quiet that comes right before the sky breaks. From the garage, Reaper called out, "You hear that?" Jace stepped out, wiping grease from his hands. "Hear what?" Reaper tilted his head. A faint hum carried over the horizon. Engines, more than one, coming fast. Lena appeared at the door of the kitchen, shielding her eyes from the glare. "Tell me, that's our guys." "It's not," Jace said. His tone was low but certain. Within seconds, the hum became a roar. 4 black SUVs emerged from the desert road, dust spiraling behind them like smoke trails. They didn't slow down. "Get everyone inside," Jace shouted. The bikers dropped what they were doing, sprinting for cover. Anna froze, her pulse hammering. Reaper grabbed her arm. "Come on." Before they could move, the first SUV skidded to a stop just outside the gate. A dozen men poured out, armed, dressed in black tactical vests, the sun glinting off their rifles. At their center, stepping out of the lead vehicle like a man arriving at his own coronation, was Richard Hale. He looked almost ordinary in the daylight, white dress shirt rolled to the elbows, gold watch flashing, sunglasses cutting the glare. But there was something about the way he carried himself, that slow confidence of a man who'd never been told no. Anna's breath caught in her throat. Jace moved toward the gate, calm, deliberate, like a wolf approaching a predator. "You lost, Hale?" Richard smiled faintly. "Not at all. I've been tracking something that belongs to me." "She doesn't belong to you," Jace said. Richard took off his sunglasses, his eyes sharp and cold. "Everything I pay for belongs to me." The world narrowed to a thin electric line between them. 2 men, one unarmed but unafraid, the other surrounded by his army. Reaper's voice was quiet but fierce. "Say the word, boss." Jace didn't blink. Not yet. Richard looked around unimpressed. "So, this is the great Hell's Angels I've heard about. Thought you boys had more sense than to shelter another man's mistake." Anna stepped forward before anyone could stop her. "You're the mistake, Richard. You and your lies." He turned his gaze on her, the kind of look that once made her small, not anymore. "Still mouthy," he said. "You used to be quieter when I told you to stay home." Jace took one step forward. say another word to her." Richard smirked. "What are you going to do, biker? Growl at me?" That was when the first shot rang out. It came from the tree-ine. A warning burst that shattered a bottle near Richard's feet. Dust and glass sprayed across the ground. The angels had moved faster than anyone saw. Within seconds, half a dozen of Jace's men were in position behind bikes and barrels, weapons drawn. Jay's voice carried across the heat. "You came to my door, Hale. That means I decide how you leave." Richard's men raised their rifles. Tension snapped like a live wire. Anna ducked as a shot fired, then another. The sound exploded across the yard. Bullets tore through metal. The angels fired back, their Harleys providing cover as engines roared and smoke filled the air. Jace moved through the chaos with the kind of precision born from too many wars. Ducking, returning fire, shouting orders. Reaper, left flank. Reaper's gun barked twice. 2 of Hale's men went down. Anna crouched behind a truck, shielding her stomach, eyes wide with terror. Lena was beside her, gripping her arm. "Stay low." The sound was deafening. Gunfire, engines shouting, a symphony of violence under the burning sun. Richard ducked behind his SUV, shouting into his radio, "Pull back, pull back." But it was too late. One of the angels tossed a smoke canister, the yard filled with thick white haze. Out of it came the sound of boots, the gleam of leather, the low growl of engines revving in sync. When the smoke cleared, Hale's men were gone. Some crawling, some carried, their SUVs riddled with holes. Richard stood alone, shirt torn, sweat cutting streaks through the dust on his face. Jace walked toward him, gun in hand, not raised, but ready. Richard spat blood onto the ground. "You think this is over?" Jace stopped a few feet away. His shadow fell across Hale's boots. "It's over when you stop breathing." Richard straightened, his tone calm again. "Too calm. You won't pull that trigger. You're not a killer." Jay's jaw tightened. "No, but I don't need to be." He lowered the gun slightly, stepping closer until their faces were inches apart. "You ever come near her again, and I won't shoot you. I'll let the road take you." He turned away, signaling his men. The angels began to fall back, their formation disciplined, even in victory. Richard shouted after him, voice roar, "She's mine, Maddox. You can't hide her forever." Jace didn't look back. "You already lost her the first time you hit her." The engines roared to life, drowning out Richard's rage. The convoy of bikes circled the SUVs once, dust rising in a storm around them, then peeled away down the road. A thunderclap rolling into the distance. Anna stood trembling in the doorway, tears streaking her soot-stained face. When Jace returned, she stepped forward and threw her arms around him before she could stop herself. He froze, then let out a breath, one arm instinctively steadying her. "You shouldn't have come out," he murmured. "I couldn't stay inside and listen," she said. "He looked at me like he still owned me." Jace pulled back, meeting her eyes. "He doesn't, not anymore." Behind them, smoke drifted across the yard again, catching the sunlight like ghosts fading into the air. For the first time, Richard Hale had been forced to retreat, but everyone there knew what men like him did when they lost control. They burned the world down to get it back. And he wasn't done yet. By the next morning, the desert looked clean again, too clean. The yard bore no scars, no smoke, no broken glass. The men had worked through the night, rebuilding what the fire and bullets had destroyed. Engines were tuned, metal welded, the flag rehung. From a distance, it looked like nothing had ever happened. But inside the walls, the air was charged with something new. Vengeance. Anna watched from the shade of the garage as Jason Reaper stood over a table littered with maps, radios, and ammo. They spoke low, calm, methodical. The world outside might still believe Richard Hale ran Dry Valley, but in this yard his kingdom was shrinking by the minute. Lena brought Anna a cup of coffee. "You didn't sleep," she said. "Couldn't," Anna admitted. "Every time I close my eyes, I see him standing there." Lena nodded. "You'll see him until the day he can't stand any more." Anna hesitated, her gaze fixed on Jace. "He won't stop. You know that, right?" Lena's tone softened. "Then neither will we." That was the thing about the angels. Once they made a promise, it wasn't just words. It was blood. Later that afternoon, Jace walked over, his voice quieter than usual. "We found something in one of the SUVs Hale left behind." Anna's stomach tightened. "What is it?" He handed her a cracked phone, still smeared with dust. "Belonged to one of his men. It's full of messages, coordinates, payments." She took the phone, scrolling through the texts. Then she froze. "These numbers, these are bank accounts offshore, and those names," she swallowed hard, "those are police officers." Reaper let out a low whistle. "He's got half the sheriff's department on retainer." Jace looked at her carefully. "You know more than what's on that phone, don't you?" Anna hesitated, then reached into her bag. From beneath a folded blanket, she pulled out a small silver flash drive. Her hands trembled as she held it out. "I took this before I ran," she said. "It's everything. Financial reports, recordings, wire transfers. Richard used me to sign the documents, so my name's on all of it. I thought if I kept it, I'd have leverage. But now Jace took the drive gently, studying it. Now it's a weapon." Reaper grinned. "Guess the lady brought the bullets." Anna's voice was soft but steady. "He used to say no one could touch him. I want to prove him wrong." Jace looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "You just did." He turned to Reaper. "Get Ace on the line." Reaper raised an eyebrow. "Ace, that hacker kid. He owes me a favor," Jay said. They disappeared into the back office. Anna sat with Lena, heart pounding. For the first time, fear wasn't what filled her chest. It was resolve. An hour later, Jace came back, tucking his phone into his pocket. "We're going to hit him where he can't shoot back," he said. "How?" Anne asked, by turning his own system against him. Reaper tossed her a small smirk. "Our friend Ace is already in. Once those files go public, Hale's money trail hits the feds before he can bury it. He can't bribe bullets, but he sure as hell can't bribe headlines either." Anna blinked. "You're leaking it?" Jace nodded. "Every last drop, but he'll know it came from me," she whispered. Jace met her gaze. "Good. Let him." The room went quiet. Outside, the desert wind picked up, whipping sand across the lot like tiny sparks. That evening, they gathered in the workshop. A laptop sat on the table, the flash drive plugged in. On the screen, Ace's messages scrolled fast, lines of code and addresses flickering by. Ace uploading now. It's going to burn bright. Jace let it. When the progress bar hit 100%, the laptop beeped softly. Anna stared at the screen, her pulse echoing in her ears. "It's done." Jace nodded. "In less than an hour, the whole world's going to know what kind of man he really is." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Reaper leaned back, folding his arms. "You realize he's going to lose it, right? He's not the kind to crawl away quietly." "That's why we don't wait," Jay said. "We move first." He turned to Anna. "Pack your things. We're getting you out of here tonight." She shook her head. "I'm not running again." "This isn't running," Jay said. "It's surviving. Let us take the heat." Anna's eyes burned, not from fear, but from the weight of everything she'd carried for too long, I don't want to hide anymore. Jace stepped closer. His voice dropped to a low rumble. You're not hiding. You're fighting. You just don't have to do it alone. For the first time, she didn't argue. As the sun bled out over the horizon, the angels rolled their bikes into formation. The engines rumbled alive, deep and defiant. Dust rose around them like a storm forming at their feet. Anna climbed into the van, Lena beside her. The flash drive still clutched tight in her hand. Reaper mounted his Harley, turning to Jace. You think this is enough to end Hale? Jace stared down the road, the wind tugging at his cut. It's enough to make him bleed. The convoy pulled out just as the first stars began to pierce the dusk. In the distance, sirens echoed, faint at first, then rising. The sound followed them like a shadow. Anna looked out the window. The desert blurred past in streaks of red and gold. For the first time in years, she didn't feel hunted. She felt free. Jace rode beside the van, glancing at her through the glass. Their eyes met for only a second, but it was enough. Neither of them needed to say it aloud. This wasn't the end of the fight. It was the beginning of the reckoning. By dawn, the storm had gone digital. News alerts flashed across every screen in Dry Valley. Developer Richard Hale under federal investigation. Leaked files expose corruption, bribery, and money laundering scheme. His smiling face, once printed on charity galas and town billboards, now glared back from a dozen news channels with the word fraud stamped beneath it. Inside the warehouse, the angels watched in silence as the world finally turned its eyes toward their enemy. Reaper leaned back against his Harley, smirking. He's trending, boss. Whole damn country knows what he's been doing. Lena crossed her arms. He won't go quietly. No, Jay said, his tone measured, almost calm. He'll come here. Anna stood near the doorway, clutching her stomach as the screen on the wall replayed Hale's face. For years, she'd been terrified of what he could do. But now, for the first time, she saw fear in his eyes instead of hers. Do you think they'll arrest him? She asked softly. Reaper snorted. Guys like that don't get arrested. They implode. He was right. By noon, Hale's empire was already crumbling. His accounts were frozen, his business partners vanished, and the police chief, the one he bought and owned, was suddenly on vacation. His phone buzzed with threats. Reporters outside his mansion. Helicopters circling overhead, and yet he didn't hide. He got in his car and drove toward them. Jace heard the engines before he saw them. A single, black SUV this time, barreling through the desert road, its tires spitting dust like fury itself. Reaper's voice came low through the radio. Incoming. One vehicle. It's him. The yard went still. Every man took position, not behind cover, not in fear, but in quiet readiness. Jace stepped forward, rolling his shoulders once. Nobody fires unless I say. Lena turned to Anna. You stay inside. Anna shook her head. Not anymore. Lena hesitated, saw the fire in her eyes, and said nothing. The SUV tore into the lot, skidding sideways in a storm of gravel. The door flew open and Richard Hale stepped out. His shirt was wrinkled, his face pale, eyes bloodshot from rage and sleeplessness. He looked less like a king and more like a man drowning in the ruins of his own power. Where is she? He shouted. Jace didn't move. Right where you can't touch her. Richard pulled a pistol from his waistband, waving it with shaky fury. You think you've won? You think a few headlines change who I am? No, Jace said evenly, but they showed everyone who you are. Richard aimed the gun directly at Jace's chest. I built this town. I made these men respect me. Jace stepped closer, unflinching. You didn't build anything, Hale. You bought fear, and fear burns fast. The sound of boots echoed from behind. Anna stepping out of the doorway. Her voice was trembling, but loud enough to cut through the dry air. You don't own anyone anymore. Richard's head snapped toward her. You think they'll protect you forever? They're criminals. You're just another. He didn't finish. Jace moved faster than the gun. His hands snapped forward, knocking the weapon from Hale's grip. It hit the ground, skittering across the dirt. Hale stumbled back, his bravado cracking. Pick it up, Jay said. Let's finish this without lies. Hale's chest heaved. Sweat rolled down his temples. You wouldn't shoot me. I don't have to, Jay said. You've already killed yourself. At that moment, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, closer. The sound of the law real this time. Hale turned, panic flashing in his eyes. No, they can't. Jay stepped in front of him. The feds have your files, your money trail, your contracts. It's over. Hale's face twisted. You ruined me. You ruined yourself, Jace said. For a second, Hale looked like he might collapse. Then rage overtook him again. He lunged toward the gun on the ground, but Reaper was already there, kicking it out of reach. The police vehicles roared into the yard, tires screeching. Agents in dark suits poured out, shouting commands. Federal officers hands up. Hale froze, trembling. His world, the one built on threats, money, and silence, had finally run out of air. Anna stood still, watching as they cuffed him, reading him his rights. He turned his head once, locking eyes with her. You'll regret this, he hissed. She didn't blink. I already did for years. They shoved him into the back of the SUV. The door slammed shut. The sirens faded into the distance. The yard fell silent again, except for the low rumble of a Harley idling somewhere near the gate. Reaper exhaled. Well, I'll be damned. The law actually showed up on our side for once. Lena smiled faintly. Don't get used to it. Anna turned toward Jace. It's over. He shook his head slowly. No, it's finished. There's a difference. She stepped closer, voice low. I don't know how to thank you. Jace looked at her, his expression unreadable, but his tone gentle. Don't. Just live. For the first time, she allowed herself to breathe without fear. The desert wind carried the last traces of sirens away, leaving only the soft echo of engines and the crackle of the flag above the yard. Jace turned to his men. Clean up, then rest. We ride again tomorrow. Reaper raised an eyebrow. Ride where? Jace smirked faintly. Wherever someone else thinks they're untouchable. Anna watched as the men returned to their work, engines flaring under the blinding sun. It struck her how strange it was that the loudest people she'd ever met could also be the quietest when it mattered most. The storm was over, but something about this place, this brotherhood of thunder, had rewritten what safety meant. She touched her stomach, whispering almost to herself, You're safe now, little one. The wind caught her words and carried them away. A year passed, and the desert looked different. The scars of the fire were gone, replaced by new steel and polished chrome. The Angel's yard thrummed with the same sound as always, engines rolling, laughter echoing. But beneath it all was something softer, steadier, like peace learning to breathe again. The headlines had faded. Richard Hale's trial ended in a lifetime sentence. His name turned into a warning instead of a threat. The people he bought and owned vanished with him. For once, Dry Valley belonged to the quiet ones, the ones who'd survived. Anna Reeves stood outside a small roadside cafe, sunlight catching in her hair. The sign above the door read, Silver Wing Coffee, hand-painted and slightly crooked. She smiled at that imperfection. It made the place feel more real, more hers. Through the window, a tiny crib sat beside the counter. Inside, a baby slept. Soft curls stuck to his forehead in the afternoon heat. His name was Logan. Lena wiped down a table and looked up with a grin. Kid sleeps like his mom. Whole world could fall apart and he'd still be dreaming. Anna laughed softly. Let's not test that. The bell above the door jingled. She looked up and froze. Jace Maddox stood in the doorway, the desert sun behind him, his cut faded from miles of riding, but his presence unchanged. Reaper followed a few steps behind, holding a small wrapped box. Lena's grin widened. "I'll get the coffee," she said, retreating to the counter. Jace approached slowly, boots heavy against the wooden floor. "Place looks good," he said, still learning how to make a decent espresso, Anna said with a smile. "But I think we've mastered not burning the toast." Reaper chuckled. "That's more than Maddox here can say. He tried cooking once, nearly set his bike on fire." Jace shot him a look and Reaper held up his hands. "All right, I'll shut up." He placed the box on the counter and nodded toward Anna. "That's from the boys. Housewarming or cafe warming, whatever you call it." Anna opened it carefully. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a small silver emblem, 2 outstretched wings polished until they caught the light like glass. Beneath it, a tag engraved with 4 words. "You'll never ride alone." Her breath caught. "It's beautiful." Jace's voice was quiet. "It's yours." She ran her thumb over the wings. "You didn't have to do this." He shrugged. "We don't do things because we have to." Behind them, the baby stirred. Jace's eyes flicked toward the crib. "He's bigger than I thought he'd be." Anna smiled, walking over. "Strong, too. He's already trying to stand." Reaper leaned on the counter. "What's his name again?" "Logan," she said. The name hung in the air for a moment, meaning more than it seemed to. Reaper smiled softly. "Fitting." Jace stepped closer to the crib, looking down. The baby's tiny hand twitched, then reached out, brushing Jace's finger. For the first time in a long time, Jace's hardened face softened. Anna watched him quietly. "He wouldn't be here if not for you." Jace shook his head. "He's here because you decided to live." The room fell still. Outside, the wind rustled through the old flag hanging by the door, faded now but still flying. Lena broke the silence, setting down 2 mugs. "Coffee's on the house for heroes," she said. Reaper smirked. "Guess that means I'm paying for mine." They all laughed, the sound light and unguarded. When the laughter faded, Jace turned to leave. "We should get back on the road." Anna followed him to the door. "Do you ever stop?" He looked at her, eyes shaded by the brim of his helmet. "Stopping gets people hurt. Riding keeps us alive." She nodded slowly. "You think you'll ever come back?" He smiled faintly. "We always circle back one way or another." Outside, the sunlight hit the bikes, turning chrome to fire. Reaper started his engine, the sound rolling through the valley like thunder. Jace swung a leg over his Harley, tightening his gloves. Before he put on his helmet, he reached into his pocket and handed Anna something small and worn. A single wing pendant matching the emblem she'd just been given. "Keep it close," he said. "It means someone's got your back, no matter where the road takes you." Anna looked at the pendant, then at him. "And you?" He smiled. That quiet, tired smile she remembered. "I've got miles to go." She stood in the doorway, baby in her arms as the engines roared to life. The convoy pulled out onto the open road, sunlight bouncing off chrome, dust swirling in their wake. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. The same sky, the same desert, but everything different. Lena came up beside her, watching the bikes fade into the horizon. "He'll be back," she said. Anna smiled, eyes on the road. "I know." As the sound of engines faded, she looked down at the baby sleeping against her chest. His tiny fingers clutched the edge of her shirt, peaceful and safe. "See that sound, Logan?" she whispered. "That's what freedom sounds like." The camera would have pulled back then. The cafe, small but glowing under the wide blue sky. A woman who'd survived the storm holding the future in her arms. The faint echo of engines still rumbling somewhere far away. Because Mercy had ridden with Thunder, and Thunder had learned how to protect life. And that finally was enough. She walked into a biker bar with nothing left but fear, and walked out with a family built on Thunder. Anna Reeves didn't ask for a miracle. She just asked for mercy. But sometimes mercy rides on two wheels and wears leather instead of wings. From the ashes of violence came something stronger than revenge. Loyalty, the kind that protects instead of punishes, that rebuilds instead of destroys. 1 year later, the engines still echo through Dry Valley, not as noise, but as a promise that no woman stands alone and no storm lasts forever. Because kindness isn't weakness. It's the beginning of loyalty. And in a world that forgets how to protect the good, sometimes it takes the outlaws to remind us what real justice sounds like. This is Heart Tales, where compassion meets courage and mercy learns how to fight back. If this story moved you, hit subscribe, leave a comment below, and tell us what would you have done if she walked into your world asking for help. Stay with us for the next ride.